You're listening to the E2C Network, podcast by Auburn fans for Auburn fans.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with Jared Davis. It's time for a fun topic. We're going to be talking about what we think about the 2022 NFL draft and who we think from Auburn could potentially go in the next year's draft. I know the 2021 draft just happened. You may be like, why are we talking about the next one? Because we can't. And it's also fun to just think about some of the players that could potentially go in the next year and see what they do in the NFL. So, Jared, are you ready to get started on talking about all these different players that are on Auburn's team currently, but a year from now could potentially get drafted?
Yeah. I mean, there's no, you can't start to, right? They've probably already got, top 25 polls out for next year and who's going to win the Heisman and all that. So, I think it's interesting. I think it'll be fun. Let's see. I want to hear, I'm excited to hear your take on who you think's going to be, who has the potential to be drafted next year at Auburn's team.
Yeah, I mean, some of them that already come to mind are some of the juniors, but I know there's going to be some seniors that, they've come back. I'm thinking about like Roger McCreary and Smoke Monday that probably were, I don't know if they were like high level draft quality, but they probably at least would have got picked up via free agency. But they decided to come back for their senior year. And I guess that's maybe a good spot to start is who do you think, based on those guys that decided to come back from their junior year to senior year, who do you think has the potential to raise their draft stock even more this year?
The ones that decided to come back from their junior year, to senior. I think, I really think probably Roger McCreary. I don't know the ins and outs of all what the analysts say, and I don't know that he's got the measurables. I don't know how he's going to do on that, but I think he's just a great cornerback, and I think the year with Derek Mason going to make the entire secondary that much better. But I think Rogers I think he's a really solid player, and with a little more coaching, I think he could surprise some folks, honestly. As far as the people that came back, do you agree with that, or you got somebody else on your radar?
Yeah, I think Rogers is one of them. I think he probably would have been a free agent if he had gone in this year's draft. But by coming back could potentially, if he plays well, and like you said, if Derek Mason, who seems to be, like we've got, on the offensive side, like a quarterback whisperer. Well, Derek Mason is a cornerback whisperer and has put so many secondary players in the NFL. And an extra year for Roger McCreary, I think, could really pay off for him. I kind of lump that into like Smoke Monday, who, Smoke Monday has already got so much leadership capabilities, is a hard hitter already, but needs to refine some things. And if Derek Mason, tunes that a little bit with guys like Smoke Monday, he could be another one that I think really could pay off coming back the extra year. So that's just what I'm thinking.
You know what surprised me? I was surprised to hear, I had not heard it before, I was surprised to hear that Smoke Monday is highly regarded by teammates, and he is a natural leader, because there's been times on the field, nothing crazy, but you just view his demeanor and you almost think he's kind of, ho-hum, I'm going to do my job. And I don't know, I didn't get the leadership vibe from him, but the news out of, especially out of this coaching change and him being a senior, is that he is going to absolutely be one of the leaders on the defensive side. And that was cool to hear. I didn't get that. I didn't get that vibe, so I was happy to hear that.
Yeah, well, I feel like the leader, quote unquote leader, a lot of times is like the, line up, do this. Like maybe it's not always that way. Obviously I'm thinking back to like somebody like Cam Newton. He wasn't that way. He was a fun-loving, kind of like Smoke Monday, just like having fun out there, making sure his guys on his side of the ball are doing what they're supposed to. But Yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily get the vibe that Smoke Monday was the leader, but obviously I feel like that plays a good role also in the NFL, that, you know, he owns his position. He can, you know, rally people around him when things aren't great. You got to overcome the adversity. You come to Smoke Monday. Smoke Monday is going to, you know, push you through that and be right there for you. Another guy that, I mean, just I was thinking about, obviously we've got Bo Nix, this will be his junior year. Where do you kind of put him in potentially going next year? I don't think right now, and not many people I feel like would put him as going after his junior year. But what do you think it would take for Bo to go to the NFL after his junior year?
I think after we win the national championship, he's probably going number one.
I mean, if that happens, yes. I would advise him, yes, do that.
That's my view. No.
But even if we win like the SEC championship under Bo Nix, like, would that be enough?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think people, you know, when you come out of high school as a 4 or 5 star, they want you to succeed because that means they're right. And when you come out, Bo came out not only as a 5 star, but he was, you know, potentially this, you know, stud. They Alabama fans don't, Georgia fans, but overall, the overall idea is it would be cool for Bo to succeed. So all it takes is for Bo to put consistent games together.
Yeah.
And he will start getting mentioned. They want him. The media would like for an SEC quarterback with a little bit of history to his name to be successful. I mean, it just makes a little bit of a story. So I think if he goes to the SEC championship game, I think that'll be enough to get really people looking at him and saying, okay, this is what we thought Bo could be. You know, I'll be honest, if you want to know my opinion about what he does or where he goes, I think if Bo's not projected first round, he comes back. I mean, I just don't see Bo settling for second or third round and just leaving unless the wheels fall off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't see that happening.
Yeah. I mean, so far he's had a couple, you know, the bad games, and it's one of those things where you have to go through it, especially his freshman year. You have to go through the bad freshman games. He still had some, like, you know, iffy games even his sophomore year. But it sounds like, I mean, this is always post, you know, in the whatever off season, there's always talk about, oh, he's getting the system, he's understanding it, he's, you know, getting more ability to, you know, make decisions and whatever. I mean, we're probably not going to know until like 3, 4, 5 games in whether or not Bo's really catching on to the system and is making a difference. Because, I mean, yeah, he was a consistent quarterback, but does that mean he's a good enough quarterback that the NFL is going to look at him and, you know, potentially draft him pretty high? Or, you know, I don't know. I don't see, that's the part where I think if we do really well this season, I think Bo's, and it's because of our offense, then I think Bo goes. But if we have, you know, an 8-5 or 9-4 kind of season, Bo's probably staying. He's probably staying his senior year, probably staying. But, all right, hypothetically, if he did go in the 2022 draft, where do you think Bo would go? And this is, you know, kind of hypothetically saying Auburn has a great season. We're like 10-2 or 11-1 or something like that. Where do you end up? Where do you think he'll go in the draft?
If we go 10-2 and 11-1, he goes in the first round because, I mean, he's starting with he has a bunch of receivers that have zero experience. So if we do that well, I mean, I've said all along we got to ride tank, and I think that is our best success. But we don't go 10-2 or 11-1 without Bo also shining. So if that happens, he was able to he turned the corner, and basically it was all him. Nothing against the receivers, but it's not like he just threw it up to Seth a lot of times. I mean, it's going to be, you know, Bo having to mature and find ways to get them the ball. So,
yeah,
if in that scenario, he goes first round, in my opinion. I don't see it happening. I don't think he goes in this draft. But it did get me thinking, can you think of, so Bo, and I know we probably overplayed it a little bit, but I think for national level, Bo was highly sought after.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm trying to think of quarterbacks. It happens at a lot of positions, but as a quarterback, being almost a sure thing like he has, how many of them have failed? I can't think of a lot of them. The closest thing I have maybe come up with was Jake Eason that was at Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
He was a stud. I mean, he's built. He's got a strong arm, tall. Didn't work out at Georgia. Went to Washington, kind of was so-so there and got taken in the 4th round, I think, by the Colts. So I'm just trying to think of sure thing quarterbacks that literally never turn the corner. And I can't think of any.
Yeah, I feel like most of them turn the corner at some point because they just have the God-given talent that it takes to be, that top-level quarterback that can process so quickly. And I mean, I legitimately still think Bo has that in him. It's just putting the pieces of getting his footwork correct and putting all the fundamentals together that make that quarterback at that next level just a more surefire thing. Because right now, I mean, most teams I feel like in the NFL probably aren't going to go after Bo next. And
you know how they say you got to walk before you run. Bo has done the opposite. Bo can do all the crazy things. He can throw on the run. He's got total ridiculous arm strength. Bo can't do the simple stuff. He can't do the stay in the pocket, hit a slant route in stride, maybe throw a 15, 20-yard plus relatively simple pass, not for me or you, but for somebody of that talent. His footwork, he can't do the simple stuff. He's running, but he hasn't learned to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And if he can learn to walk, that's what keeps drives alive. He's going to make ridiculous passes that are going to make you go, oh, this guy can do it.
Yeah.
And then he's going to come out the next drive and miss a easy, curl route, and you're going to get frustrated again.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a element of he's done the wow plays. He's done he definitely has talent. But then, he's got Anthony Schwartz running down the sideline, and yet he doesn't set his feet and overthrows the guy. And you're like,
yep.
Just sighs of just frustration. And yet if he had set his feet, it would have been a completion, touchdown, and, we probably wouldn't have thought anything more of it. So it's a matter of I feel like Bo this is his 3rd offensive coordinator, trying to, really take in whatever training that honestly, which is really cool, our offensive coordinator and our head coach, Brian Harsin, they've both been awesome quarterback coaches. And they've been able to speak the language of quarterbacks. I mean, Brian Harsin was a quarterback. This is going to be helpful for Bo to the next level that I'm hoping really takes him there.
Real quick, because I got pretty harsh on him, I feel like. I love Bo. I think this guy's a limit for him. And I think he turns the corner. Ultimately, just making the point of, he's doing the hard things. He's figured that out. You got to figure out the easy things.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. The next guy that I want to talk about was Owen Pappoe. So he's going to be a junior this year. I've seen on some of the draft boards as high as 1st round, which to me sounds pretty crazy. I think he's a great linebacker. But then I'm like, okay, we have awesome guys that are also on the linebacker core, but yet Owen Pappoe is also, he's above them. I mean, I don't doubt it, but it just kind of shocked me that he could potentially go his junior year and be drafted so highly. What do you think about Owen Pappoe potentially going next year?
I mean, the NFL falls in love with measurables, and I think Owen Pappoe, he's not tall, but as far as just his ability, very athletic, can stay with a receiver if he needs to. They fall in love with that stuff, because if they didn't, there was a guy from Missouri a few years ago led the league in tackles. He didn't get drafted. I don't know that Jacoby would have gotten drafted, and he led the league in tackles last year. So they don't pay attention to that. They don't pay attention to SEC Player of the Year in defense. They want to know how fast your 40 time is, how high your vertical is.
Yep, and how coachable you are.
And how coachable. You got to be coachable. But those are the things they work. Now, they like to see the stats, but you can almost throw out the record book, show up on your pro day, run a 4.2 40, and they're going to draft you.
Yeah, it's going to catch their eye for sure.
So I think, and kudos to Owen. He's going to benefit from that, because Owen is, I think, again, other than height, I think Owen's a freak of an athlete. I think that, we keep saying this, but under Derek Mason, I think all these guys are just going to get even that much better and just understanding and Kevin Steele was great. I really do think he was great, but I just think that Derek's going to take things to a different level and just hear a new, fresh voice.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to take what Steele taught and what Derek teaches. Maybe he does become a first rounder. I hope he does.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking last year, Owen Papo definitely took a huge step forward, especially when KJ Britt was out after the second game of the season, and Owen and Jacoby had to step up immediately, and both of them did incredibly well.
I agree. They need credit for that.
And I think that's maybe why people are looking at him saying, kind of reminds me of like Noah Igbinoghene, like stepping onto the cornerback side of the defensive side of the ball, and just like his trajectory went straight up. Like he started improving so much. And I feel like that's what Owen did a lot last year, was you didn't necessarily think, oh wow, this guy's amazing, but he was doing his job. And there weren't that many plays that I can think of where I was like, oh crap, like he was out of position. There was a couple times that he couldn't, like, and I guess this is part of the reason he's an inside linebacker. He didn't guard, a tight end coming out off the line or scrimmage or something. And so that part wasn't there. But I feel like that's also a coachable thing. And we're also in a new system where he'll be an inside linebacker, and the outside linebackers will more than likely be the ones that will be defending the tight ends or, a slant guy coming across the middle. Like, it's not necessarily going to be that inside linebacker.
You're getting too technical for me now. I just know how fast they run and, like, did they make a tackle?
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think you to my point about the pro day and the measurables, I mean, Noah Igbinoghene, I can never say that name.
Hey, I think you got it. Iggy.
Iggy. He played a year and a half maybe at DB. I mean, how many guys were highly drafted in the SEC, played well, and went behind Noah? Noah went that high because Noah has a good body size and is very fast.
Yes. He's a track star. I mean,
yeah. And he did well. I mean, he did well. Don't get me wrong. He had great stats. I mean, I think Devontae Smith said he was the toughest guy he went up against. So that helps. But his measurables were there. And so the NFL loved him, and that's why he surprised people and shot up so high.
Yeah,
in the draft.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's again one of those things where I think you got it right. Why he's going so, like, potentially could be so high is he's got the measurables. And I think if he proves himself this year under Derek Mason's defense, I mean, I think second round is not out of reach. I mean, first round if we have a heck of a season on defense, but I mean, second round is kind of where I'm sitting right now. Is that like, what are you thinking for that?
Man, I really don't know. I mean, I just talked about how he could potentially go first, but I mean, I could see him not even going, I mean, it really just depends. I do think he probably goes strictly because of the things we talked about and how athletic and fast. So, and if he does go, I think he's probably getting a second grade rating at worst.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you never know. They could fall, I mean, like Seth Williams fell. But I think the feedback he would get if he leaves early would be, hey, you're second round at worst. And that's possible with him. I mean, I could see that being a grade that he gets.
Yeah.
So, it'll be exciting. These NFL coaches are very confident individuals, and they're like, you just give me somebody that's athletic, I'll coach them. So he made these mistakes in college. I can fix that. But I can't make him athletic.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's why they'll just snatch up athletic guys and assume they can fix any issues.
Yeah, there's something to be said about just like a guy who has the measurables and is smart enough to comprehend things at a fast level that not only college requires, but especially the NFL requires. So I wanted to talk about a guy that was a former Auburn Tiger, but I felt like he's an honorable mention since he was on Auburn's team for a little bit. Malik Willis. And Malik Willis, he's kind of like he's the backup quarterback for a while. He would come in, run a few plays, didn't show a whole bunch. He would come in junk time, that kind of stuff. But he has been getting lots of praise from a lot of different people. And at Liberty, I mean, they had a heck of a season this year. Won how many games? Blanking on it right now. I felt like it was like almost every game this season.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot.
And a lot of that was due because Malik Willis has matured as a quarterback. And one of the things that analysts just kept raving about was his strong arm. And I was like, I don't remember that at Auburn. So what went on?
He only read zone reads at Auburn,
right?
So we never saw his arm.
I mean, hey, he was great at the zone read. I feel like there was at least a couple plays where we'd bring him in and he would do the zone read and then run 50 yards down the field. Like, it kind of reminded me of Nick Marshall. Like, so, I mean, he had his place on Auburn's team. It just wasn't the starter. And I kind of don't blame him, retrospectively going to Liberty. But one of the things that I was reading about him, which I thought was kind of cool, his coach changed up his form to make his arm stronger. And now he's completing about 64% of his passes. And he had 20 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions last season. And he was doing work. And I think that really caught the eye of a lot of NFL analysts that are looking at, who was the guy, now I'm blanking on him, who went really high in the draft this year, the quarterback.
The North Dakota State guy?
Yeah, that guy.
Trey something.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it right now.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
I was going to say Trey Lindsey, but that is not right.
Yeah. No, it was Trey Lance.
Trey Lance, that's it. But I feel like that kind of sparked, well, potentially he might go pretty high in the draft. And I've seen some draft analysts say first round. I was like, holy crap, like that would be insane. Maybe he does, but I think more realistically, he could be like a second round, third rounder, maybe fourth rounder. But he could also just not get drafted. It depends on how this year goes for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking up. They played, they beat Virginia Tech. That's good competition. Coastal Carolina, they beat them, and that typically wouldn't mean much. But Coastal Carolina had a really good year. So, and I think their coach said that Malik was just amazed him.
Yeah.
And the 10, 15 minutes I saw of their whole season, he had 2 or 3 deep passes that were right in stride. I mean, he looked a little like he I don't think he's as tall as him, but he looked a little like Justin Fields in the way he, threw the ball, a pretty ball downfield.
Yeah.
That was easily catchable, and that's the new thing now, man. Chunk plays like that.
It absolutely is, and I think it's definitely bleeding into the NFL. Is those big chunk plays. It's very popular in college, but I think it's bleeding a little bit over into the NFL where they're looking, I mean, like for the Anthony Schwartz type speed, you get Anthony Schwartz type speed and like you get him literally a step behind the DB, throw it to him. And if you put it on the money, it's touchdown, automatic.
We're going to take a quick break from this episode for a special announcement. One of the things that we take great pride here at the E2C Network are our listeners are really our E2C Network family. Now, I know they enjoy listening to us, but let's be honest, every once in a while, they probably would like a little bit of change of pace. Well, that's where you come in if you're a business owner. If you have any interest in partnering with us in terms of ads or sponsorships on our podcast episodes, you can reach us at e2cnetwork@gmail.com. Let us help you reach the widest variety of Auburn fans out there. I mean, come on. Who else listens to a network where they cover everything from Auburn football to The Bachelor and the connections it has with Auburn? Utilize our podcast, Facebook Live shows, and other flexible partnership opportunities that are available upon request. Let us help you reach the E2C Network family and the Auburn family at large on how you might best be able to serve them. Reach out to us at e2cnetwork@gmail.com for more information. That's all we have for you in this special message. Let's get back into the episode.
Let's talk about a couple more guys. We've already talked about Roger McCreary and Smoke Monday. I think both of them will more than likely get drafted next year. They're one of the both of them. They came back for the senior year, like we had already mentioned. But I think Roger could go third round. It could be a little bit higher, but I think third round is kind of where I could see him going. He last year, it's kind of like a testament to how good Roger McCreary was last year. You didn't necessarily hear his name get called that much. and that's usually a good sign. That means he's locked down on his receiver, and if it's thrown at him, he's really tight and potentially bats the ball away. So I feel like guys like him could potentially, like you said, under Derek Mason, draft stock go straight up, kind of like Smoke Monday. Let's also talk about Nehemiah Pritchett. He's also a cornerback. He got his first career start against Georgia this last year. He's kind of like a newer face on this defense. He has been around, but he hasn't had as many consistent starts as guys like Roger McCreary, who's been around like it seems like forever, like Eli Stove almost. And Nehemiah Pritchett, one of the big plays, and I had honestly forgotten about it until I looked it up. One of the big plays he had, and probably because I forgot about this game, was the South Carolina game this last year. He actually had a 48-yard interception in it. So he's got the potential, and I could maybe see him go late in the draft, like 5th, 6th, 7th round, maybe be a free agent. Just depends on, again, how much he learns from Derek Mason's secondary and fitting into how that looks.
Yeah, to be honest with you, man, I don't know enough about Nehemiah to know, where he may fall. But I'll just keep sticking with the idea that, Derek Mason, his thing is secondary. He's put several guys in the NFL. He's going to put one guy in the Hall of Fame. So, that's a small sample. He wasn't at Stanford very long, but the sample size is good that's there. So I'm excited to see what'll happen. I think a lot of these guys realize that as well because, listen, it's easy to sit here and say, well, of course you're going to come back. You were getting a free agency grade. That doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen many people who still take off and don't necessarily make probably the best decision. And a lot of that plays in with the coaches they're talking to. So they probably talked to Derek Mason, got a good feel, said this guy can really help me out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming back.
Yeah. Another guy that I think could potentially go is Tyrone Truesdell. He's a defensive player that I feel like could potentially, especially in this offense, take off. He could make himself even more of a presence on the defensive line. His career tackles is 67. He'll be a senior. This is the year for him to really prove himself. And if he has a good season this year, he'll catch some NFL scouts out there that will want somebody big like him. I mean, shoot, he's like 335, and I feel like he could probably trim up a little bit and just be a wrecking ball on the defensive line. TD Moultrie, I feel like he could potentially be, again, one of those guys on the defensive line as a senior, maybe get drafted. I'm really not sure. Jared, any thoughts about TD Moultrie and maybe potentially what he could do if he goes to the NFL draft?
The only thing, he was one of those, he might have even been a 5-star, AJ. I mean, he's one of those guys that you want to succeed because it, fulfills the theory that was about him. He's just never fit in. I don't know. I think, is he not moving back to a linebacker type role this year, which is what he came out of high school as? I want to say they mentioned he might be kind of moving back to more of a linebacker role.
Yeah, that's what it kind of sounds like. I mean, he's kind of, I know we need depth at defensive line, but I mean, if he's not really working out as an edge rusher, put him at the outside linebacker, which, under Derek Mason, I think what we'll see is they kind of act as that edge rusher sometimes, especially in certain situations. They'll put in a guy like TD Moultrie and just say, go get the quarterback. Have fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's got to be exciting for him if, hey, it's not been working. So I'm getting to – and I believe he's going back to that position. He's like, hey, I'm going back to where my natural position. And, I think Gus, when he came out, and, keep in mind, Gus is an offensive mind. I want to say Gus in a press conference was asked about, who impressed him most out of that class that TD was a part of, and I think he said TD. So, he was a very highly thought of player coming out of high school. It has not manifested. Maybe this move will be what it takes. And if it does, he's athletic. It doesn't take a lot. He's not ruined himself yet. Go out there, have a good season.
Yeah.
We've mentioned it many times on this podcast, but, Joe Burrow was not Joe Burrow until his senior season. So, and then he went number 1.
It's crazy.
So
That's crazy.
It isn't over until it's over.
No, and I mean that's coaching, that's understanding the system you're in, and it's just working your butt off. And I know there's certain guys. I mean, TD Moultrie has been one. He's been on this team for all 4 years. Well, this will be his 4th year, and that's something you got to work your butt off to stay on the team, to get your grades up, to be somebody who's consistently getting starts. And I feel like that's something that he's kind of been working at. He's on the edge of getting up to that level.
Well, let's praise him real quick too, because this is a, and I get people got to make the decision that's best for them. But a lot of scenarios that play out like TD Moultrie's, they transfer. Highly touted guy comes in, is not where he thinks he should be.
Yep.
And he assumes it will be better somewhere else, so he transfers. So give TD credit. He stuck with it. And, only thing I can hope is that it winds up paying off big time for him, and would love to see him, succeed and move on up the draft board.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned that, it kind of made me think of, and nothing against Big Cat Bryant. I mean, I think he's one of those guys that did contribute at Auburn, but didn't ever hit, I feel like, his full potential at Auburn. Whether or not that was his effort level or the scheme or whatever was going on. But I mean, this is a new defense, and I feel like that's kind of the fun part of it, is to see how these guys will bubble up to be the starters, and how much they'll get to play, because TD Moultrie's kind of been sitting second stringer, third stringer, coming in key spots, but never has been a consistent like player that you'd think about. All right, cool, this guy's going to be awesome every single game. He hasn't gotten up to that. But, hey, Derek Mason could switch that on him as soon as he's in the system. Another guy, Chandler Wooten. So, if you remember back, he didn't play last year, opted out, came back for his senior year this year. So, pretty excited to see him. He'll be fitting back in at his linebacker position. I think if he does well, and it seemed like even at A-Day, he was already getting some good second team reps and getting things going again. It just takes time to knock off all that rust. But I think a guy like Chandler Wooten could be another one that, if he does well, he could be a late draft pick, like 5th, 6th, 7th rounder. And I mean, if worse comes to worse, he's probably a free agent. He's a smart, physical guy that I feel like last year, if he hadn't opted out, he would have been a key guy in the linebacker core, or in the linebacker room. Wanted to mention a couple more. I wanted to mention Sean Shivers. I love Sean Shivers. He's 5'6", bolder of a guy. I think Auburn has him listed 5'7", but I mean, he could be 5'7", but that's my height, and that's pretty crazy to think about, that he's a SEC running back. But I mean, it kind of showed in the A-Day game even a little bit. The offense that we started to kind of figure out and on A-Day and during the spring is looking like Sean Shivers could fit a good role in that. Tag team with Tank Bigsby. So is that enough, Jared? Do you think that's enough that will catch a team's eye, and take a little bit of risk on them?
I don't know. You and I were talking off the air, and guys like that, you have to be elite at certain sizes. Nothing against the size, but we're talking, hey, how are they going to translate to NFL?
Yeah.
Darren Sproles comes to mind. That guy was ridiculous.
He was the same size, 5'6", 190.
Yeah, essentially same size. Came out of Kansas State and had a long NFL career. The thing about the two, and this, I'm not sophisticated enough, but it felt like every motion Darren Sproles did mattered and like got him open. I feel like Shivers sometimes shifts but doesn't actually change position. It's just like shifting of the feet. And I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, so I don't put them in the same category. However, Shivers has one of the coolest plays that we will ever have at Auburn.
So true.
Knocking somebody's helmet off at Alabama. And I will say he's tough, and there may be a role for him. Something I want to bring up that apparently I don't do Twitter anymore, but I think something was going around saying Shivers tries to avoid contact. My entire complaint about the guy is that he goes seeking contact. Like there's times I thought, man, just cut that outside and keep going upfield. He runs somebody over.
No, I feel the same way. If there's a guy, he runs straight at him, and you're like, dude, if you like took one more step outside, you would have totally missed him and gone an extra 10 yards or whatever.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, again, I have to hear bits and pieces. I think it got enough traction to where Shivers had to respond, and so I'm like, Shivers is not. He doesn't have. Go back and watch the Iron Bowl 2019. He's not avoiding contact.
Oh no, no. He hits that whatever line he's about to hit, and he hits it hard. Like he doesn't care.
So I guess my ultimate point is I don't know if he gets drafted or not. I like the guy. He's a hard worker. He also could have been a key before the 2019 Iron Bowl. Could have been a key. Hey, it's not working like I thought. I'm transferring, and he never did.
Yep.
So, kudos to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that just hit me, he could be potentially a good kickoff type role. Like he's done that a lot at Auburn. Kickoff returner and running it out. Like he's quick. I mean, he's sprinter fast kind of guy. Like he gets up to speed super quick, and on kickoffs, I mean that's key.
Well, think of one more thing: the phantom hold against Alabama in 2018. It was like the second or third play of the game. I mean, he took that like 70 yards. So the potential's there. Maybe they just need to tell him every game he's playing Alabama, and he will elevate his game. But no, seriously, in A-Day, the blocking was good. He had some great runs. I think he's going to be a great compliment to Tank. He's not on Tank's level, but we don't really need him to be. But in this case, we're saying, hey, for his sake, what's it going to mean? And I would say, the running back position is so devalued now in the NFL. You have to – I mean, the guy for Alabama barely went in the first round, and we were starting to think he wouldn't. I mean, it's,
Yeah, and he was a Heisman finalist.
Yeah, I mean it's so devalued. It's nothing against running backs. It's just their body can't take it. They're going to last 4 or 5 years max. And
and there's I was listening to like the draft commentary on it, and they were like, I wouldn't have taken a running back in the first round. Like, and I was like, that's the mentality now. Like a lot of teams aren't taking running backs that early because there's workhorses. I can get them whenever, and it's crazy. It is crazy how much they've been devalued.
Well, and that means if you have basically a wasted round of and that is a true mentality right now. We're not taking running backs first round, so technically the first round for running backs is the second round. So now you get back to Shivers, and you're like, there's not enough rounds for somebody, so you probably are going to be a free agent. But that's not. Hey, a lot of free agents have gone on to make a lot of money. So
yeah. Another guy that I wanted to definitely mention was Anders Carlson. He'll be a senior this year. It is kind of odd for a kicker to get drafted, but his brother did it. So, I mean, Jared, do you think Anders gets drafted? Is it possible that you think he gets drafted?
I don't know. If he doesn't, I think it's his freshman year of using him the wrong way. I think I don't think you can have a blip on your radar or a bad year. And he was asked to kick too many over 50, but I don't know. I mean, his brother got drafted. That is very rare. The team that drafted his brother cut him. He's now doing really well at Oakland.
Yep.
If there's any Minnesota fans, I'm sorry, but I laugh every time y'all miss a field goal or extra point.
Me too.
So I think it's hilarious. They still can't hit field goals, so it was not Carlson's fault. But yeah, to your point, there's not a lot of. But I mean, I think there's been punters drafted here recently. You never know. These analytics plays the game now, and if they're like, hey, we need a lockdown field goal person because we lost 4.8 games last year because we missed a 37-yard. They know all this stuff now.
Oh yeah.
And so that matters, and they may spend their 5th or 6th round pick on a kicker.
Yeah. Well, and with the NFL pushing back the extra point, it puts
That's
that
true,
much
too.
pressure on
Good
the
point.
kicker to be a very consistent. Can you hit that extra,
Good
what
point.
is it, like 37-yard field goal essentially every time? Like, can you do it? And it's not a gimme like it used
Nope.
to be.
No, you're right. That's a good point. I agree with you.
And I honestly think Anders, anything inside of 40, I honestly think of him as automatic. And
Yeah, he's pretty
that's
good.
great. That's nothing to be, scoffed at. I mean, he's a solid kicker inside of 40. And heck, even inside of, the 40 to 50 range, he's been solid these last really 2 years. It was just his freshman year that kind of skewed
his freshman
everything.
year, and it wasn't his fault. He was asked
No.
to kick 50-yarders, and nobody, I mean, even veteran quarterback kickers shouldn't have to do that as much as he did, but true freshman, that's just, you can't ask him to do that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Jared, I think that kind of wraps up our discussion. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm just getting excited. I mean, it's kind of crazy that we're already in May, but you start, doing the math, and we're just a few months away from really ramping this thing up. And
Yeah.
they said that I just read where Alan Green said the plan for now is 100% capacity. That could change, but so if we can get back to 100% capacity and some real football, that kind of getting me excited talking about it.
I mean, it's I don't know, definitely a more possible or a bigger reality than it was even just a few months ago. Like, if you had asked me in January, pre, the vaccine being out, is this going to happen? Are we going to have a full season that has 100% capacity? I've been like, maybe 70%, maybe 80%, but it's legitimately sounding like there may be, come this fall, 100% fans in stadiums. And I feel like that is awesome. That is awesome to get back. And I don't know, there's this ambiance of just college football that is definitely wrapped up in 100% capacity, especially these big games, that was kind of lost in this last year. I know, 20% of fans kind of did their thing. They yelled, and yeah, it was pretty good, but it's nothing like literally like 80,000 to 100,000 fans yelling at you. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
I totally agree. They got 100% capacity back at the Braves game. So, baseball kind of led that. I know we got to get done, but baseball, they had a COVID outbreak, and everybody wanted them to shut down last year.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And I think that led the charge set the tone for other sports leagues and how to push through that and still manage. And so they may be leading the charge now, too, with, MLB was able to do 100% capacity. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely, man. I know season's still a few months away, but hey, it's before we know it, summer's going to be over, and Jared, we're going to be talking about the practices and the fall, and then starting our season again in 2021. It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be crazy, my man. And then we're only 1 year away from the new EA college football game.
Yes. Woo!
Where we can all pretend like we know what we're doing in football.
Yeah, and I can make whoever I want. And
That's right. Like a 6'5" dude that runs 4'1", 40 and can throw a football a quarter mile.
That's right. That's exactly what I was hoping. I mean, I can't wait until that day.
Yes, sir.
All right, Jared, before we get out of here, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram under my name, Jared Davis.
Not on Twitter because you're off Twitter. Yeah.
I don't do Twitter. I can see tweets occasionally, but I don't actually have a Twitter account.
Yeah. And you can find me on Twitter at AJayJay_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Before you get out of here, we want to remind you of a couple things. Head over to e2cnetwork.com, our website where you can find everything that you'll ever need from us, podcasts, blogs, and even ways to help support the show. If you want to find individual episodes, you can download all of these on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. So until we see you again, I want to remind you of one thing, that here at the network, we believe in Auburn and love it. The only question remains, do you?